Well before the Europeans arrived, the area that was to become Nigeria had vast resources, almost 1 million square kilometers at the heart of West Africa. From Atlantic shores to Sahara Desert, and everywhere in between, a country of varied landscapes, of wild and rich vegetation. In the south, a vista of swamps and lagoons, creeks and waterways. Further north, the hilly terrain of the Jos Plateau. A contrast with the hinterland, giving way to savanna bush, merging into the desert. A natural heritage unique in Western Africa. But since early times, it was the rivers that shaped the region's commerce. The two broad rivers that straddled the countryside, the Niger and the Benue. It was here that native traders moved their produce. These were the arteries that made trade possible. River commerce, the lifelines of the region for centuries. People here were divided along tribal lines, with a history of great empires and city-states. Fulani and Hausaland in the north, Yorubaland in the west, Iboland in the east. But behind these broad divisions lay a teeming diversity of tribes and peoples, over 250 ethnic groups, hundreds of languages and dialects. Today's Nigerian culture was formed in the centuries before foreign traders came. Geography shaped its cultural diversity. In the north, the pull of Islam and sub-Saharan commerce. Structured societies under kings and emirs, providing security for their traders. Strong hierarchies, organizing all aspects of their kingdoms, regulating political life and social and economic customs. Further south and to the east, the vast Niger River Delta, with its more diverse societies, its traders traveling a multitude of waterways through thousands of tiny villages. Ruling the villages were councils of elders. There were no kings in these parts. The traders bartered with tribes in the hinterland, fish and salt against vegetables and tools. Further west, the vast centralized kingdoms of the Yoruba and Benin, kingdoms but still diverse peoples. Throughout the area that was to become Nigeria, people lived within the framework of their tribes. Traditional rulers held sway over their people. In most cases, there were no problems of succession, and that made for stable government. These were the shores to which foreign traders came. First the Portuguese in the 16th century, but by the mid-1800s, it was the British presence that had grown the most. Not only traders, but explorers and missionaries also. From coastal outposts, they set up trade routes into the interior. This gradual opening of trade routes led to direct commerce between African producers and the Europeans. British traders were already infringing on the commerce of native chiefs. As trade grew by 1850, the British government was ready to intervene to secure its profitable centers of trade and carry out commerce on its own terms. In 1851, on the pretext of suppressing the slave trade in Lagos, British gunboats bombarded the city. The British deposed and expelled the king and installed their own friendly ruler. 10 years later, after continuing disorder, they were to annex the city by treaty. The British claimed the treaty was an agreement between two mutually interested parties. For the next 40 years, Britain slowly gained complete control of the area, but it was the notorious Treaty of Berlin, signed in 1885, which finally gave the British the right to develop the Niger region as their sphere of influence. The conference and the subsequent treaty were totally European creations. They had nothing to do with the hopes and wishes of African peoples. The conference carved up Africa to suit European trading interests. In Berlin, the British had little trouble convincing the other Europeans that they and their allies had a right to the Niger region. The conference had given the British the green light to organize and protect their trading in the crops of the Niger area. The British wanted to save on costs of administration, so they asked trading companies to administer the areas where they operated. In the north, they were to protect the trade in groundnuts. In the west, the export crops were rubber, cotton, and cocoa, and in the Niger Delta, it was palm oil for European soaps and creams that made the traders wealthy. And so the system of protectorates took root in Nigeria towards the end of the 19th century. It was a system that was to further British trading interests, and it was open to abuse. When in 1886 the Royal Niger Company was granted a charter to administer its area, it was told not to seek trade monopolies, and yet it did just that, while consolidating British influence and control. The company, under Sir George Goldie, was accused of using its charter to set up a monopoly. It excluded local traders through heavy fines and fees for administration. By now, many Nigerian chiefs were under pressure to sign treaties accepting British rule. British representatives would depose chiefs who refused to cooperate. But there was opposition, as local rulers sought to protect their trading interests. The story of Jar Jar of Opobo symbolized the repression faced by native rulers who refused to toe the line, but it also showed the depth of resistance. Jar Jar's business acumen annoyed the British. Jar Jar was never to see his homeland again. When he was finally allowed to return home, he died en route. The influence of the British was growing. The southern protectorates coalesced into political units. By the 1890s, they had rudimentary governments. They had customs departments, medical and postal services, and even a small army. And yet the most violent resistance in the south was still to come, from Oba of Nramwen of Benin. The British provoked him. He fought back. He was captured and exiled, his palace ransacked, his kingdom the last to fall to the British in southern Nigeria. Even chiefs who thought they could work with the British ended up opposing them. In the early 1900s, the protectorates were reduced to two, to further streamline administration as the pace of colonial expansion quickened. It was Sir Frederick Lugard, employee of the Royal Niger Company, later High Commissioner, who seized control of northern Nigeria. He claimed local rulers had broken trading agreements. He deposed the emirs of Nupe and Yola and replaced them with friendly rulers. With his expeditionary force, he took control of Kano, then Sokoto. The Sultan of Sokoto, Atahiru, escaped. He was pursued by the British 900 kilometers to Burmi. There, Atahiru was defeated and killed. The huge Sokoto Caliphate in the north was now under British control. Colonization of Nigeria was now complete.